The stagecoach rattled to a stop in front of the trading post, and Dalila Zamora felt her stomach twist as she stepped down into the dusty street of Nogales, Arizona, her younger brother Mateo clinging to her hand like a lifeline. The year was 1878, and the desert sun beat down mercilessly on the small border town, where Apache territory met the sprawling ranches of white settlers. She had walked for 3 days to reach this place, her feet bloody and her throat parched, because Mateo had stolen a horse from the wrong man, a wealthy rancher named Cornelius Yates, who had sworn to see the boy hanged. Dalila had heard through the grapevine that Yates frequented this town, and she had come here with a desperate plan that made her chest ache with fear and determination. Mateo was only 15, too young to understand the consequences of his actions, too impulsive to think before he acted. Their parents had died 2 winters ago from fever, leaving Dalila at 18 to raise her brother alone. They had lived on the edges of their Apache community, never fully accepted because their mother had been Mexican, never fully trusted by the Mexicans because their father had been Apache. When Mateo had taken that horse, thinking he could sell it and buy them food, he had sealed his fate. Yates had men searching everywhere, and the word was that he would pay $50 for information leading to the boy's capture. Dalila had spent 3 sleepless nights wrestling with her decision, and finally, she had come to the only conclusion that made sense. She would offer herself to Yates in exchange for her brother's freedom. She would work for him, serve him, do whatever he demanded if only he would let Mateo go free. The thought made her skin crawl, but what choice did she have? Mateo was all she had left in this world. She made her way through the dusty streets, asking questions until she learned that Yates was staying at the Silver Spur Hotel. Her hands trembled as she climbed the stairs to his room, Mateo protesting the entire way. "Dalila, no, you cannot do this." "I will take my punishment like a man," he said in Spanish, his dark eyes fierce with pride. "You are a boy, not a man, and you will do as I say," she replied, her voice sharper than she intended. She knocked on the door before she could lose her nerve. A gruff voice called out, "Come in." She pushed open the door and found herself facing a large man with a thick beard and cold eyes. Cornelius Yates sat in a chair by the window, a whiskey glass in one hand and a cigar in the other. 2 other men stood near him, both wearing gun belts and hard expressions. "Well, well," Yates said, looking her up and down with an expression that made her want to run. "What do we have here?" "My name is Dalila Zamora," she said, forcing her voice to remain steady. "This is my brother Mateo. He is the one who took your horse." Yates set down his glass and leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. "Is that so? Well, boy, you have caused me a great deal of trouble. That was a valuable animal." "I will pay you back," Dalila said quickly. "I will work for you. I will do whatever you ask, but please let my brother go." "He is just a boy." He did not understand what he was doing. Yates stood up and walked toward them, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. He circled around Dalila like a vulture, and she could smell the whiskey on his breath. "You will do whatever I ask. That is a dangerous promise, girl." "I mean it," she said, lifting her chin even as her heart pounded. "Just let Mateo go free." Yates laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "I do not need a servant, but I tell you what, I will let the boy go if you stay with me for 6 months. You will warm my bed, cook my meals, and keep your mouth shut. At the end of 6 months, if you have pleased me, I will consider the debt paid." Dalila felt bile rise in her throat, but she nodded. "I agree." "No," Mateo shouted, trying to pull her toward the door. "Dalila, I will not let you do this." Before anyone could react, the door burst open and another man strode into the room. He was tall and lean, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that curled at his collar. His eyes were a startling shade of gray-green, and he wore a Colt revolver on his hip with the ease of someone who knew how to use it. Dalila noticed immediately that he was younger than Yates, perhaps 25 or 26, and there was something in his face that looked almost kind. "Yates, I heard you were making deals without consulting me," the man said, his voice carrying a hint of a drawl. "That is not how partnerships work." "Youngblood, this is none of your concern," Yates said, his face reddening. "This is between me and these Apache. The boy stole your horse, but the horse was on land we leased together," the man called Youngblood replied. "That makes it my concern too, and I am not in the habit of taking advantage of desperate women." Dalila stared at this stranger, hope flickering in her chest for the first time since she had entered the room. Yates turned to face Youngblood fully, his hand moving toward his gun. "You calling me dishonorable? I am saying that there is a better way to handle this," Youngblood said calmly. "The boy made a mistake. The horse has been returned, has it not?" "Yes, but that is not the point," Yates snarled. "The point is that these people need to learn that they cannot steal from white men without consequences." Dalila felt anger flash through her fear. "My brother is sorry for what he did. We are willing to make amends, but I will not stand here and be spoken about as if I am less than human." Youngblood's eyes met hers, and she saw respect there. "What is your name?" "Dalila Zamora. This is my brother Mateo. My name is Zachary Youngblood. I own a ranch about 10 miles north of here. Miss Zamora, if you are truly willing to work to pay off your brother's debt, then I will make you a different offer. Come work for me as a housekeeper and cook. I will pay you fair wages, and you can send your brother to live with your people where he will be safe. At the end of 6 months, the debt will be considered paid, and you will be free to go." "Now hold on just a minute," Yates began, but Zachary held up a hand. "I will pay you the value of the horse and the trouble, $50. That is more than fair." Yates looked like he wanted to argue, but $50 was a significant sum. Finally, he nodded grudgingly. "Fine, but if that boy sets foot on my land again, I will shoot him on sight." "Understood," Zachary said. He turned to Dalila. "What do you say, Miss Zamora?" Dalila looked at this stranger who had just saved her from a fate worse than death, and she nodded slowly. "I accept your offer, Mr. Youngblood. Then it is settled." Zachary pulled out a money clip and counted out $50, which he handed to Yates. "We are done here." He gestured for Dalila and Mateo to follow him, and they hurried out of the hotel before Yates could change his mind. Once they were outside in the bright sunlight, Dalila let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did," Zachary replied simply. "I may not be the most upstanding citizen in Arizona, but I draw the line at letting men like Yates take advantage of young women. Now, we need to get your brother somewhere safe before we head to my ranch. Do you have people nearby?" Dalila nodded. "There is a small Apache settlement about 15 miles east of here. My mother's sister lives there with her family. We will take him there tomorrow morning. For tonight, you both can stay at the boarding house. I will pay for a room." Zachary started walking down the street and they followed. Mateo tugged on Dalila's sleeve and whispered in Spanish, "Can we trust him?" Dalila watched Zachary's straight back and the way people on the street nodded to him respectfully as he passed. "I think so," she whispered back. "He could have walked away. He chose to help us." That night, lying on a real bed for the first time in weeks, Dalila could not sleep. She kept thinking about Zachary Youngblood and the way he had stood up to Yates without hesitation. She had met few white men who treated Apache with anything resembling respect, and fewer, still, who would go out of their way to help them. What kind of man was he? And what would life be like on his ranch in the morning? Zachary was waiting for them outside the boarding house with 3 horses. He helped Dalila mount one, showed Mateo how to sit properly on another, and swung easily onto the third. They rode east into the desert, following trails that Dalila knew by heart. The sun climbed higher as they traveled, turning the landscape into a shimmering sea of gold and rust. Zachary rode beside her, and after a while he began to talk. "I should probably tell you a bit about myself, since you are going to be working on my ranch. I inherited the land from my father 3 years ago when he died. It is not much, about 2,000 acres, but the grazing is good and I have built up a decent herd of cattle. I live alone, except for 3 ranch hands who have their own bunkhouse. The main house has 4 bedrooms, a kitchen, a parlor, and a bathing room. It is not fancy, but it is comfortable." "How did you come to partner with Mr. Yates?" Dalila asked. Zachary's expression darkened. "That was my father's doing. He borrowed money from Yates and used the ranch as collateral. When he died, I inherited the debt along with the land. Yates holds a lien on a portion of the property, which means he has a say in certain business matters. I have been working to buy him out, but it is slow going. Hopefully in another year or 2 I will be free of him." "He is a bad man," Mateo said from Zachary's other side. "Yes, he is," Zachary agreed. "But he is a powerful bad man, which makes him dangerous. That is why you need to stay away from him and his property, Mateo. I mean that. If you ever need something, you come to me, understood? Do not go stealing again." Mateo looked ashamed. "I will not. I am sorry for what I did. I just thought. Dalila works so hard and we never have enough. I wanted to help." "I understand," Zachary said, his voice gentler. "But there are better ways to help. Work hard, learn a trade, make something of yourself. That is how you honor your sister's sacrifices." They reached the Apache settlement around midday. It was a small collection of wickiups and a few adobe structures, situated near a creek that provided precious water. Dalila's Aunt Nasha came out to meet them, her weathered face breaking into a smile when she saw her niece and nephew. "Dalila." "Mateo, we heard what happened. We have been so worried." Nasha embraced them both, then looked at Zachary with wary eyes. "Who is this?" "This is Zachary Youngblood. He helped us," Dalila explained in Apache. "He made a deal with the man Mateo stole from. I will work for Mr. Youngblood for 6 months to pay off the debt, and Mateo will be free. I was hoping Mateo could stay here with you while I work." Nasha looked Zachary up and down, her expression skeptical. "And we are supposed to trust a white rancher?" Zachary surprised them all by responding in halting Apache. "I understand your mistrust, but I give you my word that Dalila will be treated with respect and paid fairly for her work. You can visit her any time you wish, and if she is unhappy, she is free to leave." Nasha's eyebrows rose. "You speak our language?" "A little. I had an Apache friend when I was younger. He taught me." Zachary switched back to English. "Miss Zamora, why do you not spend some time with your family? I will make camp nearby and we can leave in the morning." Dalila was grateful for the time with Mateo and her aunt. They talked long into the night, and Nasha made her promise to send word if Zachary mistreated her in any way. Mateo cried when it was time to say goodbye, and Dalila held him close, whispering promises that everything would be all right. The ride to Zachary's ranch took most of the day. They traveled north through mesquite and sagebrush, past rocky outcroppings where lizards sunned themselves and hawks circled overhead. Dalila had never been this far north before, and she found herself fascinated by the changing landscape. As they climbed in elevation, the desert gave way to grasslands dotted with juniper trees. Finally, as the sun was beginning to set, they crested a hill and Dalila saw the ranch spread out before them. The main house was built of adobe and wood, with a wide porch that wrapped around the front and one side. There was a large barn, a stable, a bunkhouse, and several corrals. Cattle grazed in the distance, and she could see the glint of water from a stream that ran through the property. "Welcome to the Youngblood Ranch," Zachary said, and there was pride in his voice. They rode down to the house, and 3 men emerged from the bunkhouse to meet them. Zachary introduced them as Hank, a grizzled older man with kind eyes, Pedro, a Mexican cowboy about Zachary's age, and Tommy, a young man no older than 20 with red hair and a ready smile. "Boys, this is Miss Dalila Zamora. She's going to be working as our housekeeper and cook. I expect you all to treat her with respect. Understood?" All 3 men nodded and greeted her politely, though she could see the curiosity in their eyes. It was not common for a white rancher to hire an Apache woman, especially not one as young as she was. Zachary showed her into the house, and Dalila looked around with wide eyes. It was bigger than any place she had ever lived, and while it was not luxurious, it was clean and well built. The furniture was sturdy and practical, and there were books on shelves in the parlor. "Your room is upstairs, second door on the right," Zachary said. "It has a bed, a dresser, and a washstand. There are linens in the closet. The kitchen is through here, and it is well stocked. I usually eat breakfast at sunrise, dinner at noon, and supper after dark. The boys eat in the bunkhouse, but I take my meals here. You are welcome to eat whatever you like whenever you like." Dalila nodded, trying to take it all in. "What are my other duties?" "Keep the house clean, do the laundry, mend clothes when needed. On Saturdays, the boys usually want baths, so you will need to heat water for that. Other than that, just keep things running smoothly. I am not a demanding man, Miss Zamora. I just need someone to help manage the household so I can focus on the ranch." "I can do that," Dalila said. "And please call me Dalila. Miss Zamora sounds too formal." Zachary smiled, and it transformed his face, making him look younger and more approachable. "All right, Dalila, and you can call me Zachary or Zach if you prefer. Let me show you where everything is." He took her through the house, pointing out the pantry, the root cellar, the bathing room with its large copper tub, and the small room off the kitchen where he kept supplies. By the time he was done, Dalila's head was spinning, but she thought she could manage. "Get some rest tonight," Zachary said. "You have had a long few days. You can start your duties tomorrow." Dalila carried her small bundle of possessions up to her room and found it exactly as Zachary had described. The bed was narrow but comfortable, with a colorful quilt spread across it. The window looked out over the front of the property, giving her a view of the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She sat on the edge of the bed and let herself cry for the first time since this whole ordeal had begun. She cried for Mateo and his foolishness, for her parents who were gone, for the life she had lost and the uncertain future that stretched before her. But underneath the tears, there was also a tiny seed of hope. Zachary Youngblood had treated her with more kindness than she had any right to expect, and perhaps, just perhaps, the next 6 months would not be as terrible as she had feared. The next morning, Dalila woke before dawn and made her way down to the kitchen. She found flour, eggs, bacon, and coffee and set about making breakfast. By the time Zachary came downstairs, the table was set and the food was ready. "Good morning," he said, looking pleasantly surprised. "This smells wonderful." "Good morning," Dalila replied. "I hope you like it." They sat down to eat together, and at first the silence was awkward. But then Zachary started talking about his plans for the day, explaining that he needed to ride out and check on the cattle in the south pasture, and gradually Dalila found herself relaxing. "Have you always lived in Arizona?" she asked. "Born and raised," Zachary said. "My father came out here from Texas after the war. He was looking for a fresh start and he found this land. It was harder back then, more dangerous. Apache raids were common and there was no law to speak of. But my father was a stubborn man and he made it work. Were you afraid of the Apache? Zachary met her eyes. Sometimes. But I also understood that they were fighting for their land, their way of life. My father taught me to respect that, even if we were on opposite sides. And when I met Nogales, my friend I mentioned, I learned that Apache are people just like anyone else. Good ones and bad ones, brave ones and cowardly ones. What happened to your friend? Zachary's expression grew sad. He was killed in a skirmish with the cavalry when we were 18. I tried to stop it, tried to tell them he was not part of the raiding party, but they would not listen. That was when I realized that the color of your skin or the blood in your veins matters more to most people than the content of your character. Dalila felt a kinship with this man who had lost his friend to senseless violence. I am sorry. Me too. Zachary stood and carried his plate to the sink. Well, I should get to work. If you need anything, just ring the bell on the back porch and one of the boys will come help you. The days fell into a pattern after that. Dalila woke early, made breakfast, cleaned the house, prepared the midday and evening meals, and did whatever other tasks needed doing. It was hard work, but it was honest work, and she found satisfaction in it. Zachary was a considerate employer, always thanking her for the meals and never making unreasonable demands. The ranch hands were respectful, if a bit shy around her. In the evenings, after supper was finished and the dishes were washed, Dalila would often find Zachary sitting on the porch, watching the sun go down. One night, about 2 weeks after she had arrived, she brought out 2 cups of coffee and sat down beside him. "May I join you?" she asked. "Of course," Zachary said, taking one of the cups with a grateful smile. "You do not have to wait on me after hours, you know. Your work day ends when supper is finished, I know. But I like the evenings here, it is peaceful." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, sipping their coffee and listening to the sounds of the ranch settling down for the night. Finally, Zachary spoke. "Can I ask you something? You do not have to answer if you do not want to. What is it? Why did you really offer yourself to Yates?" "I mean, I understand wanting to save your brother, but that was an incredible sacrifice. Most people would not have had the courage." Dalila thought about her answer carefully. "Mateo is all I have left. Our parents died and we have been on our own ever since. I raised him the best I could, but it has been hard. He is at that age where he wants to be a man, but he does not have a father to teach him. When he took that horse, I knew it was partly my fault. I should have kept a closer eye on him. So yes, I would have done anything to save him, even that." "It was not your fault," Zachary said firmly. "You were put in an impossible situation and you did the best you could. Mateo is lucky to have a sister who loves him so much." "Do you have any siblings?" Dalila asked. "I had a younger sister. She died of scarlet fever when she was 8. I was 12 at the time. My mother never really recovered from losing her, and she passed away a few years later, so it was just me and my father after that." Zachary stared out at the darkening sky. "I think that is why I could not walk away when I saw what Yates was trying to do to you. I kept thinking about my sister and how I would have wanted someone to help her if she had been in trouble." Dalila felt tears prick her eyes. "Your sister would be proud of the man you have become." Zachary looked at her, and in the fading light, his gray-green eyes seemed to glow. "Thank you for saying that." Something shifted between them in that moment, a connection that went beyond employer and employee. Dalila felt her heart beat a little faster, and she quickly looked away, confused by her own reaction. She had not come here to develop feelings for Zachary Youngblood. She had come here to pay off a debt and then return to her life. But as the days turned into weeks, she found herself looking forward to their evening conversations more and more. One morning, about a month into her stay, Dalila was in the kitchen making bread when she heard raised voices outside. She went to the window and saw Cornelius Yates riding up to the house with two of his men. Her stomach clenched with fear. Zachary came out of the barn to meet them, and Dalila could see the tension in his shoulders. She could not hear what they were saying, but it was clear they were arguing. Finally, Zachary turned and walked toward the house, his face like thunder. He found Dalila in the kitchen. "I need to talk to you." "What is wrong?" "Yates is demanding to see you. He wants to make sure you are actually working here and not living as my." He paused, his jaw clenching. "He used a word I will not repeat. I told him to go to hell, but he is threatening to make trouble. Will you come out and speak to him? You do not have to, but it might be the easiest way to get rid of him." Dalila's hands were shaking, but she nodded. "I will talk to him." They walked out together, and Yates looked her up and down with that same predatory expression that made her skin crawl. Well, you are still here, and looking well-fed too. Youngblood must be treating you nicely." "He has been very kind," Dalila said, keeping her voice even. "I am working off my brother's debt as we agreed." "Is that all you are doing?" Yates asked with a nasty grin. Before Dalila could respond, Zachary stepped between them. "That is enough, Yates. You have seen her. Now get off my property." "I will go when I am ready," Yates said, his hand moving to his gun. "You seem awful protective of this Apache girl, Youngblood. Makes a man wonder what is really going on here." "What is going on here is that I hired a housekeeper and you are harassing her," Zachary said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Now I am telling you one more time. Get off my land." For a moment, Dalila thought Yates was going to draw his gun. But then one of his men leaned over and whispered something to him, and Yates seemed to reconsider. "Fine, but I will be watching you, Youngblood, both of you." He wheeled his horse around and rode off, his men following. Zachary watched them go, his hand resting on his own gun until they were out of sight. "Are you all right?" he asked, turning to Dalila. "Yes, thank you for standing up for me. Again. You do not need to thank me for doing what is right." Zachary looked troubled. "But I want you to be careful when you are alone. Yates is not going to let this go. He is the type who holds grudges." "I will be careful," Dalila promised. That night, she lay in bed thinking about the way Zachary had stepped between her and Yates without hesitation, the way he had defended her honor. She had never had anyone protect her like that, and it made her feel things she had no business feeling. She reminded herself that this was temporary, that in 5 more months she would be free to leave, that getting attached to Zachary would only lead to heartbreak. But her heart did not seem to be listening to reason. The next few weeks passed without incident, and gradually, Dalila began to relax again. She and Zachary fell into an easy friendship, spending their evenings talking about everything from books to horses to memories of their childhoods. She learned that he had a dry sense of humor that often caught her off guard, and that he was passionate about improving his ranch and making it a success. He learned that she had a talent for healing herbs, that she loved stories, and that she dreamed of one day having a small plot of land where she could grow vegetables and raise chickens. "Why do you not stay here after your 6 months are up?" Zachary asked one evening. "I mean, as a paid employee. I could increase your wages, and you could send money to Mateo to help him get started in life." Dalila was tempted, but she shook her head. "I do not think that would be wise." "Why not?" "Because I am falling in love with you, and staying here would break my heart," Dalila thought. But she could not say that out loud. Instead, she said, "People already talk. If I stay longer, the gossip will only get worse. I do not want to damage your reputation." "I do not care what people say," Zachary said stubbornly. "Maybe you should," Dalila replied gently. "You have to live here, do business with these people. Having an Apache woman living in your house is already causing problems. Why make it worse? Zachary looked like he wanted to argue, but he just sighed and nodded. I suppose you are right, but I will miss you when you go. I will miss you too, Dalila admitted, and the truth of those words hung in the air between them. A few days later, Zachary announced that he needed to drive a small herd of cattle to Tucson to sell. I will be gone for about a week, he told Dalila. Hank and Pedro are coming with me, but Tommy will stay here to watch over things. You will be all right, of course, Dalila said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. I can take care of myself. I know you can, but if anything happens, anything at all, you send Tommy to get me. Promise? I promise. Zachary left the next morning, and the ranch felt strangely empty without him. Dalila threw herself into her work, cleaning every corner of the house and reorganizing the kitchen. On the third day, she decided to ride out to visit Mateo, since Tommy had said he would accompany her. They reached the Apache settlement in the early afternoon, and Dalila was pleased to see that Mateo looked healthy and happy. He had been learning to track and hunt with the other boys, and he proudly showed her a rabbit he had caught that morning. I am doing well, sister, he said. Aunt Nasha treats me kindly, and the other boys have accepted me. How are things at the ranch? Good, Dalila said. Mr. Youngblood is a fair man. Mateo gave her a knowing look. You like him? He is my employer, Dalila said quickly. You like him? Mateo repeated, grinning. I can see it in your face when you say his name, and he likes you too. The way he looked at you when we brought me here, it was like you were the only person in the world. That is nonsense, Dalila said, but her cheeks felt hot. We are friends, nothing more. If you say so, Mateo said, clearly not believing her. They spent a pleasant few hours with Nasha and the others, and then Dalila and Tommy began the ride back to the ranch. They were about halfway there when Tommy's horse suddenly reared, spooked by something in the brush. Whoa, easy, Tommy said, trying to calm the animal. That was when Dalila saw them, 3 men on horseback emerging from behind a cluster of rocks. Her heart sank when she recognized one of them as Yates. Well, well, if it is not the Apache girl all alone except for a green boy, Yates said, his smile cold. Where is your protector now? Mr. Youngblood is away on business, Tommy said, his voice cracking slightly. But he will be back soon, and he will not be happy to hear that you bothered Miss Zamora. I am shaking in my boots, Yates said mockingly. He rode closer to Dalila, and she could smell whiskey on his breath. You know, I have been thinking about our deal, the one we made before Youngblood interfered. I think we should revisit that arrangement. There is no arrangement, Dalila said, her hand moving to the knife she kept in her belt. The debt has been paid. Not to my satisfaction, Yates said. He reached out to grab her, but Dalila was faster. She pulled her knife and slashed at his hand, drawing blood. You little wildcat, Yates snarled, clutching his hand. You are going to regret that. Leave her alone, Tommy shouted, pulling his gun. But he was young and nervous, and one of Yates's men shot the weapon out of his hand before he could fire. Tommy, run, Dalila yelled. Ride back to the settlement and get help. Tommy hesitated for only a second, then he kicked his horse into a gallop and took off. One of Yates's men started to pursue him, but Yates called him back. Let him go. He cannot do anything anyway. Now, girl, you and I are going to have a little talk. Dalila tried to run, but Yates grabbed her by the hair and pulled her off her horse. She fought like a wildcat, kicking and scratching and biting, but there were 3 of them and only one of her. They managed to tie her hands behind her back and throw her over the back of one of the horses. What are you going to do with her? One of the men asked nervously. I am going to teach her a lesson about disrespecting white men, Yates said. And then I am going to send a message to Youngblood. He needs to learn his place too. They rode for what felt like hours until they reached a run-down cabin in the middle of nowhere. Yates pulled Dalila off the horse and dragged her inside, throwing her roughly to the floor. "Now then," he said, unbuckling his belt. "Let us see how defiant you are when there is no one to save you." Dalila's mind raced, searching for a way out. She could see her knife on the floor where it had fallen during the struggle, just a few feet away. If she could just reach it, she might have a chance. "Yates, maybe we should think about this," one of the men said from the doorway. "Youngblood will come looking for her. This could start a war." "I am counting on it," Yates said. "Youngblood has been a thorn in my side for too long. It is time to get rid of him." While he was distracted, Dalila rolled toward the knife, her hands still tied behind her back. Her fingers closed around the handle just as Yates turned back to her. "What do you think you are doing?" he demanded. "Fighting back," Dalila said, and she brought the knife up in a swift arc. She was not trying to kill him, just to cut the ropes binding her wrists. The blade sliced through the hemp, and suddenly her hands were free. Yates lunged at her, but Dalila was quicker. She dodged to the side and ran for the door, pushing past the startled men and out into the fading light. She could hear them shouting behind her, but she did not look back. She just ran, her legs pumping, her lungs burning. She ran through the desert until her legs gave out, and then she crawled into a dense thicket of mesquite and huddled there, trying to control her breathing. She could hear the men searching for her, calling out threats and promises, but the darkness was falling fast and eventually they gave up. Dalila waited until she could no longer hear them, and then she waited some more, just to be sure. When she finally emerged from her hiding place, the moon was high and the desert was silver-blue in its light. She had no idea where she was, but she knew she needed to find her way back to the ranch. Zachary would be back by now, and he would be worried. She walked through the night, using the stars to guide her, and as the sun began to rise, she finally saw something familiar. The line of cottonwood trees that marked the creek running through Zachary's property. She stumbled toward them, her feet blistered and bleeding, her dress torn and dirty. As she approached the ranch house, she saw a flurry of activity. Horses were being saddled, and men were shouting. Then Zachary appeared on the porch, and his eyes widened when he saw her. "Dalila." He ran to her, catching her just as her legs gave out. "Thank God, we have been looking everywhere for you. Tommy said Yates took you, and I have been out of my mind." "I am all right," Dalila managed to say, even though she was shaking all over. "I got away." Zachary carried her into the house and set her gently on the sofa. "Hank, get some water and bandages. Pedro, ride to town and get the doctor. Tommy, stable the horses." The men hurried to obey, and Zachary knelt beside Dalila, his hands carefully checking her for injuries. "Did he hurt you?" "No." "I mean, he tried, but I got away before he could. I cut the ropes and ran." She looked up at Zachary and saw fury in his eyes, but also something else, something that looked like fear. "I should have been here," he said, his voice rough. "I should have protected you." "You could not have known," Dalila said. "Zachary, he said he was trying to lure you into a trap. He wants to get rid of you. You need to be careful." "Let him come," Zachary said grimly. "I am done playing games with Cornelius Yates." The doctor arrived and examined Dalila, declaring that she was bruised and exhausted but otherwise unharmed. He left her some laudanum for the pain and instructed her to rest. After he left, Zachary sat beside her on the sofa, his hand gently holding hers. "I am so sorry," he said quietly. "This is all my fault. If I had not interfered that first day, if I had just let you handle things your own way, none of this would have happened. If you had not interfered, I would have been Yates's prisoner for 6 months, Dalila said. "You saved me, Zachary. Do not apologize for that." "But now he is targeting you because of me, because he knows that Zachary stopped, seeming to struggle with his words. "Because he knows that you matter to me." Dalila's heart skipped a beat. "I do?" Zachary looked at her, and there was no mistaking the emotion in his eyes. You do. More than I ever intended. More than is probably wise. Dalila, I know this is complicated, and I know you probably do not feel the same way, but I need you to know that I care about you, not as an employee, as a woman, as someone I have come to love. Dalila felt tears spill down her cheeks. You love me. I do, Zachary said simply. I think I have loved you since that first day when you walked into Yates's hotel room ready to sacrifice everything for your brother. You are the bravest, most beautiful person I have ever met, and I cannot imagine my life without you in it. I love you too, Dalila whispered. I have been trying not to because I knew I would have to leave, but I cannot help it. I love you, Zachary. He leaned forward and kissed her, gentle and sweet, and Dalila felt something inside her unfold like a flower in the sun. When they finally pulled apart, they were both smiling. So what do we do now? Dalila asked. Now we figure out how to deal with Yates, and then we figure out how to make this work, Zachary said. If you want to, I mean. I know there will be challenges. People will talk, and some of them will be cruel, but I do not care what anyone thinks. I want you to stay here, not as my housekeeper, but as my wife, if you will have me. Dalila's breath caught. You want to marry me, more than anything, Zachary said. But I understand if it is too soon, or if you need time to think about it. We have only known each other for a few months, and I do not want to pressure you. Yes, Dalila said, laughing through her tears. Yes, I will marry you. Zachary pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was something precious and fragile. I promise I will spend every day making you happy, he murmured into her hair. I promise I will protect you and honor you and love you for as long as I live. I promise the same, Dalila said. They spent the rest of the day making plans. Zachary wanted to ride into Nogales and confront Yates, but Dalila convinced him to wait and think strategically. Yates was dangerous, and going after him in a rage would only get Zachary killed. We need to be smart about this, she said. What if we went to the law? The sheriff in Nogales is in Yates's pocket, Zachary said bitterly. He would not lift a finger to help us. Then what about the territorial marshal? Surely Yates does not control everyone. Zachary considered this. You might be right. There is a marshal based out of Tucson. If we could get him to come investigate, we might be able to build a case against Yates. Kidnapping is a serious crime. Then that is what we should do, Dalila said. The next day, Zachary rode to Tucson and returned 3 days later with the territorial marshal, a no-nonsense man named Frank Garrett. Dalila told him everything that had happened, and Marshal Garrett listened carefully, taking notes. This is not the first complaint I have had about Cornelius Yates, he said when she was finished. But folks are usually too scared to testify against him. Are you willing to swear out a formal statement? Yes, Dalila said without hesitation. And I will back her up, Zachary added. I will tell you everything I know about Yates's illegal activities. Marshal Garrett nodded. Then I will ride into Nogales and bring Yates in for questioning. If he resists, I will arrest him on the spot. It took another week, but eventually word came back that Yates had been arrested and charged with kidnapping and attempted assault. He was being held in the territorial prison to await trial. Zachary's testimony about Yates's shady business dealings had also prompted an investigation into his finances, which revealed that he owed money to half the banks in Arizona and had been using intimidation to avoid paying his debts. It looks like you are finally free of him, Marshal Garrett told Zachary. The bank is foreclosing on his properties, and the lien he held on your ranch is invalid. Turns out he forged some of the paperwork. Zachary looked like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Thank you, Marshal. I appreciate everything you have done. Just doing my job, Garrett said. And Miss Zamora, you showed real courage coming forward. I hope things work out well for you." With Yates out of the picture, Zachary and Dalila could finally focus on their future together. They decided to get married in a small ceremony at the ranch, with only a few close friends and family present. Dalila's Aunt Nasha and brother Mateo made the journey from the settlement, and they were both overjoyed to see her so happy. "He is a good man," Nasha said, embracing Zachary. "You take care of my niece, or you will answer to me." "I will guard her with my life," Zachary promised. The wedding was simple but beautiful. Dalila wore a dress that Zachary had bought for her in Tucson, a soft blue cotton that brought out the warm tones in her skin. Zachary wore his best suit, and his hands trembled slightly as he slipped the ring onto her finger. "I, Zachary Youngblood, take you, Dalila Zamora, to be my lawfully wedded wife," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you in good times and bad, for as long as we both shall live. I, Dalila Zamora, take you, Zachary Youngblood, to be my lawfully wedded husband," Dalila said, her own voice shaking. "I promise to love you, stand by you, and build a life with you today and always." The minister pronounced them husband and wife, and when Zachary kissed her, Dalila felt like her heart might burst with happiness. This was real. This was her life now. She was no longer a desperate girl trying to survive. She was a woman with a home, a husband, and a future full of possibilities. The celebration lasted well into the night, with music and dancing and food. Hank played the fiddle, and Pedro sang songs in Spanish that made everyone laugh. Tommy, blushing furiously, asked Dalila for a dance, and told her that he was happy for them both. Mateo pulled Zachary aside and made him promise to take care of his sister, and Zachary assured him that he would. When the guests finally left and the ranch was quiet, Zachary carried Dalila over the threshold of their home, and they made their way upstairs to the bedroom they would now share. Zachary was gentle and patient, making sure that Dalila felt safe and cherished every moment. And when they finally came together, it was not just about physical desire. It was about two souls finding their other half, about the deep trust and love they had built over the past months. Afterward, lying in Zachary's arms, Dalila felt a peace she had never known before. "I cannot believe this is real," she whispered. "A few months ago I thought my life was over, and now I have everything I ever wanted." "We are going to have a good life together," Zachary said, kissing her forehead. "I am going to work hard to make this ranch prosper, and we are going to build something that will last for generations. And one day, if we are blessed, we will have children who will inherit all of this." "I would like that," Dalila said softly. "I want to fill this house with love and laughter." The seasons changed, and Dalila settled into her new role as Zachary's wife. She was no longer just the housekeeper. She was the lady of the ranch, and she took her responsibilities seriously. She learned how to manage the household accounts, how to treat sick cattle with her herbal remedies, and how to negotiate with the merchants in town for the best prices on supplies. Not everyone was accepting of their marriage. Some of the ranchers in the area refused to do business with Zachary because he had married an Apache woman. There were whispers and stares whenever they went to town, and once someone even threw a rock at their wagon. But Zachary and Dalila faced it all together, their love growing stronger with each challenge. Mateo came to live with them after a year, having grown into a fine young man who was eager to learn the ranching business. Zachary taught him everything he knew, and Mateo proved to be a quick study. He became like a younger brother to Zachary, and the three of them formed a tight-knit family unit. 2 years after their wedding, Dalila discovered she was pregnant. She told Zachary one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, just as they had done so many times before. "I have something to tell you," she said, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby." Zachary's face lit up with joy. "Truly, we are going to be parents." "Yes," Dalila said, laughing at his excitement. "In about 6 months if the midwife is right." Zachary pulled her into his arms and held her tight. "This is the best news I have ever heard. We are going to be a family." "We already are a family," Dalila reminded him. "But yes, we are going to add to it." The pregnancy was not easy. Dalila suffered from terrible sickness in the first few months, and Zachary hovered over her constantly, worried and protective. But gradually, as her belly grew round and the baby began to kick, they both relaxed and allowed themselves to be excited about the new life growing inside her. Dalila gave birth on a warm spring evening with Aunt Nasha acting as midwife. It was a long and difficult labor, and there were moments when Zachary feared he would lose her. But Dalila was strong, and finally, just as the sun was rising, she delivered a healthy baby boy. "He is perfect," Zachary whispered, cradling his son in his arms. The baby had Dalila's dark hair and his own gray-green eyes, and he was the most beautiful thing Zachary had ever seen. "What should we name him?" Dalila asked, exhausted but happy. "What about Nathaniel?" Zachary suggested. "It means gift from God, because that is what he is. A gift." "Nathaniel Youngblood," Dalila said, testing the name. "I like it. Nathaniel it is." Mateo was thrilled to be an uncle, and he helped with the baby whenever Dalila needed a rest. The ranch hands were equally delighted, taking turns carving toys and making presents for little Nathaniel. As the baby grew, Zachary and Dalila marveled at every milestone. His first smile, his first word, his first steps. Zachary taught him to ride a horse when he was barely 3 years old, and Dalila taught him about the plants and animals of the desert. Nathaniel was a bright, curious child, equally comfortable speaking English, Spanish, and the Apache language that Dalila taught him. When Nathaniel was 2, Dalila became pregnant again, and this time she gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah. She had Zachary's light eyes and Dalila's strong features, and she was just as fearless as her older brother. The ranch prospered as the years went by. Zachary expanded his herd and bought more land, until the Youngblood Ranch was one of the most successful operations in southern Arizona. He hired more men, including several Apache cowboys who were grateful for the fair treatment and good wages. Dalila started a vegetable garden and a small orchard, and she became known throughout the territory for her healing skills. People would travel for miles to get her herbal remedies when they were sick. Mateo eventually married a Mexican girl from Nogales named Rosa, and they built a house on the edge of the ranch property. They had 4 children of their own, and the cousins grew up together, running wild through the grasslands and learning the ways of the land. One evening, when Nathaniel was 6 and Sarah was 4, Zachary and Dalila sat on the porch watching their children play in the yard. It was their favorite time of day, when the work was done, and they could simply enjoy being together. "Do you ever think about how different our lives could have been?" Dalila asked, leaning against Zachary's shoulder. "All the time," Zachary admitted. "If I had not walked into that hotel room when I did, or if you had not had the courage to stand up to Yates, or if any one of 100 things had gone differently. But I try not to dwell on the what-ifs. I would rather focus on what we have now. And what do we have?" Dalila asked, smiling because she already knew the answer. "Everything," Zachary said simply. "A home, a family, each other. What more could anyone want?" Dalila looked out at the land that had become hers, at the children who carried both her blood and Zachary's, at the man who had given her not just freedom but a life worth living. "You are right. We have everything." As the years continued to pass, Zachary and Dalila watched their children grow into capable, compassionate adults. Nathaniel took over much of the day-to-day running of the ranch, showing the same dedication and fairness that his father had always demonstrated. Sarah, spirited and independent, became a teacher in Nogales, educating children of all backgrounds and fighting for equal treatment for everyone. Mateo's children also thrived, and the ranch became a gathering place for the extended family. Every Sunday, they would all come together for a big meal, and the house would be filled with laughter and conversation in 3 languages. It was exactly the kind of life Dalila had dreamed of during those dark days when she had thought all hope was lost. Time moved relentlessly forward, as it always does. Zachary's hair turned gray at the temples, and Dalila found silver strands in her own dark braids. But their love never diminished. If anything, it grew deeper and richer with each passing year. They had weathered storms together, both literal and figurative. They had faced prejudice and loss and hardship. But they had also experienced joy and triumph, and the profound satisfaction of building something meaningful together. One autumn evening, when they were both well into their 50s, Zachary and Dalila took a ride out to the spot where he had first brought her after rescuing her from Yates. The cottonwood trees by the creek had grown tall and full, and the water still burbled over the rocks just as it had all those years ago. "I want to tell you something," Zachary said, dismounting and helping Dalila down from her horse. "Something I have never properly put into words." "What is it?" Dalila asked, curious. "That day when I walked into that hotel room and saw you standing there, offering yourself in exchange for your brother's freedom, something inside me changed," Zachary said. "I had been drifting through life, doing what was expected of me but never really feeling connected to anything. And then there you were, this fierce, beautiful woman who was willing to sacrifice everything for the people she loved. And I thought, this is what courage looks like. This is what love looks like, and I knew in that instant that I wanted you in my life." Dalila felt tears prick her eyes. "I did not know that. I did not know it myself at the time," Zachary admitted. "I just knew I could not let Yates have you. But looking back, I can see that it was the most important moment of my life. Everything good that has happened since then, every happy memory, every accomplishment, it all flows from that one decision to help you. You gave my life meaning, Dalila. You gave me a reason to be better than I was. And you gave me hope when I had none," Dalila said, taking his hands in hers. "You showed me that kindness still exists in this world, that not everyone sees me as less than human because of my Apache blood. You saw me as a person, as someone worth saving. And then you saw me as a woman worth loving. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." They stood there by the creek, holding each other as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. It was a perfect moment, one of thousands they had shared over their years together. "We should get back," Zachary said eventually. "Nathaniel and his family are coming for dinner, and you know how Sarah gets if we are late." Dalila laughed. "She gets that from you, you know, always punctual." "I am punctual because you taught me that dinner tastes better when it is eaten hot," Zachary countered, grinning. They rode back to the ranch side by side, just as they had done so many times before. The house glowed with warm light in the gathering dusk, and Dalila could see figures moving in the windows. Their family was waiting for them. As they dismounted and walked hand in hand toward the house, Dalila thought about the long journey that had brought her to this moment. She had started as a desperate girl trying to save her brother, willing to give up her freedom for his life. She had been rescued by a cowboy who saw her value when no one else did, who offered her not just safety but respect and eventually love. She had worried that she would never truly belong in this world, that the color of her skin and the culture of her people would always mark her as an outsider. But Zachary had proven her wrong. He had given her a home, not just a physical place, but a sense of belonging that went soul deep. And together, they had built a family that bridged two worlds, showing that love could overcome even the deepest divides. The years continued to roll by, bringing both joys and sorrows. Aunt Nasha passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 78, surrounded by family. It was a sad day, but also a celebration of a life well lived. Zachary's ranch hands, Hank and Pedro, both retired and moved to Tucson, though they visited often. Tommy ended up marrying a local girl and started his own small ranch nearby, and he and Zachary remained close friends until the end. Nathaniel married a schoolteacher named Elizabeth, and they gave Zachary and Dalila 3 grandchildren. Sarah married later in life to a lawyer who shared her passion for justice and equality. They had 2 children of their own. The Youngblood family continued to grow and thrive, a testament to the foundation that Zachary and Dalila had built. When Zachary was 68, he fell ill with pneumonia during a particularly harsh winter. Dalila nursed him with all her skill, using every remedy she knew, and for a while it seemed like he would recover. But then he took a turn for the worse, and the doctor told her gently that there was nothing more to be done. Dalila sat by his bedside, holding his hand as their children and grandchildren gathered around. Zachary was weak but lucid, and he looked at each of them with love and pride. "You have all made me so proud," he said, his voice raspy. "You are good people, and you are going to do great things with your lives. Take care of each other and take care of this land. It has been good to us." Then he turned to Dalila, and his expression softened. "My love, my heart, my everything. I am so grateful for every moment we have had together. You made my life complete." "Do not talk like that," Dalila said, though tears were streaming down her face. "You are going to be fine. You have to be fine." "We both know that is not true," Zachary said gently. "But it is all right. I have had a good life, a better life than I ever deserved. And I am not afraid, because I know that wherever I go, a part of me will always be here with you." "I love you," Dalila whispered, leaning down to kiss him. "I will always love you." "I love you too," Zachary said. "Forever and always." Those were his last words. He closed his eyes and slipped away peacefully, surrounded by the family he had loved so much. Dalila grieved deeply for her husband. For weeks, she could barely eat or sleep, and she spent long hours sitting by his grave, talking to him as if he could still hear her. But gradually, with the support of her children and grandchildren, she began to heal. She knew that Zachary would not want her to spend the rest of her life in sorrow. He would want her to live, to find joy in the little things, to keep his memory alive through stories and laughter. So that is what she did. She took over the running of the ranch with Nathaniel's help, proving that she was just as capable as Zachary had been. She spent time with her grandchildren, teaching them about plants and healing and the importance of kindness. She continued to offer her remedies to anyone who needed them, regardless of whether they could pay, and on quiet evenings, she would sit on the porch and remember. She remembered the young cowboy who had walked into a hotel room and changed her life. She remembered the way he had looked at her with respect and admiration, even when she was just a desperate Apache girl. She remembered his laugh, his kindness, his unwavering sense of right and wrong. She remembered the feel of his arms around her, the sound of his voice saying her name, the way he had made her feel like she was the most important person in the world. Dalila lived to the age of 82, a remarkable lifespan for someone of her generation. She remained sharp and active until the very end, still dispensing wisdom and herbal remedies to anyone who asked. When she finally passed away in her sleep one spring morning, surrounded by 3 generations of family, there was sadness, but also a sense of peace. She had lived a full and meaningful life, and she had made a difference in the world. At her funeral, Nathaniel stood up to speak about his mother. "My mother was the strongest person I ever knew," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "She survived things that would have broken most people. She faced prejudice and hatred and danger, and she never let it make her bitter or cruel. Instead, she chose love. She chose hope. She chose to build instead of destroy, to heal instead of hurt. And because of her choices, all of us are here today. We are the legacy of her courage and my father's kindness. We are living proof that love can overcome anything." They buried Dalila next to Zachary under the cottonwood trees by the creek, the place where they had shared so many quiet moments together. And if you visit the Youngblood Ranch today, you can still see their graves side by side. 2 simple headstones that tell a story of love and sacrifice and the power of human connection. The ranch itself thrived for generations, passing from Nathaniel to his children and then to their children. The Youngblood name became synonymous with fairness and integrity in Arizona. And people still tell stories about the cowboy who married an Apache woman and built a legacy that lasted long after he was gone. But more than the land or the cattle or the money, Zachary and Dalila's true legacy was the family they created. A family that spanned cultures and defied the prejudices of their time. A family built on love and respect, and the belief that every person, regardless of their background, deserves dignity and a chance at happiness. The Apache girl had traded her freedom for her brother's life, expecting nothing but pain and servitude. Instead, she had found a cowboy who gave them both a home, and in the process, she had discovered something far more precious than freedom. She had discovered love, the kind of love that transforms lives and echoes through generations. And that, in the end, was the greatest gift of all. Not the ranch or the children or the years of happiness, though all of those things were precious. The greatest gift was the simple, profound truth that 2 people from different worlds had found each other and built something beautiful together. They had proven that love knows no boundaries, that compassion is stronger than hatred, and that one act of kindness can change the course of history. On summer evenings, when the air is warm and the cicadas sing in the cottonwood trees, some people say you can still feel their presence on the ranch. A sense of peace and rightness, as if the land itself remembers the love story that unfolded there. And maybe it does. Maybe the earth holds memories of the people who walked upon it with open hearts and good intentions. Maybe the stones remember the touch of their hands, and the trees remember the sound of their laughter. Or maybe it is just a ranch like any other, made special only by the stories we tell about it. But stories matter. They shape how we see the world and what we believe is possible. And the story of Dalila and Zachary reminds us that even in the darkest times, even when all hope seems lost, love can find a way. The Apache girl traded her freedom for her brother's life. The cowboy gave them both a home, and together they created something that would last forever. A love that transcended barriers, a family that bridged worlds, and a legacy that would inspire generations to come. Their story is one of courage and sacrifice, of standing up for what is right even when it costs you everything. It is a story about seeing the humanity in others, about choosing compassion over cruelty, about believing that people are more than the circumstances of their birth. It is a story about the transformative power of love, the kind of love that does not just make you happy but makes you better, braver, more than you ever thought you could be. And it is a story that reminds us that we all have the power to change someone's life with a single act of kindness. Zachary could have walked away that day in the hotel room. He could have told himself it was not his problem, that Dalila and Mateo would have to figure things out on their own. But he did not walk away. He stepped forward, he offered help, and in doing so, he set in motion a chain of events that would bring joy and meaning to countless lives. That is the lesson at the heart of this story. That we are all connected, that our actions matter, that what we do for others comes back to us in ways we cannot predict. Zachary saved Dalila, but in truth, she saved him too. She gave him a purpose, a family, a reason to be the best version of himself. They saved each other, and together they built something beautiful. So when you visit the Youngblood Ranch today, take a moment to stand by those two graves under the cottonwood trees. Read the simple inscriptions that mark their resting place. And remember that beneath those stones lie two people who proved that love is the most powerful force in the universe. They were not perfect. They made mistakes. They faced challenges that would have defeated lesser souls. But they loved each other, and that love was enough to overcome everything else. The Apache girl traded her freedom for her brother's life. The cowboy gave them both a home. And in the end, they gave each other the greatest gift of all, a love that would last not just a lifetime, but for all eternity. Their bodies may have returned to the earth, but their spirits live on in every child who bears their name, in every act of kindness inspired by their example, in every person who hears their story and believes that love really can conquer all. And that is how the story ends, not with sadness or regret, but with hope and celebration. Because Dalila and Zachary's love story did not end when their lives did. It continues in the hearts of everyone who believes in the power of compassion, the importance of standing up for what is right, and the miracle of finding your soulmate in the most unexpected place. They started as strangers from different worlds, brought together by circumstances that could have destroyed them. They became partners, then lovers, then husband and wife. They built a family that defied convention and a legacy that would outlast them by generations. And through it all, they loved each other with a devotion that never wavered, a tenderness that never faded, a passion that burned bright from their first meeting to their last breath. That is the story of Dalila Zamora and Zachary Youngblood, the Apache girl and the cowboy. Two souls who found each other against all odds and created something miraculous. Their story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of love to transform lives, and the simple truth that we are all worthy of happiness, regardless of where we come from or what we look like. So let their story be a light in the darkness, a reminder that hope is never lost as long as we have the courage to reach for it. Let it inspire you to be kind to strangers, to stand up for those who cannot defend themselves, to believe in love even when the world tells you it is foolish. Because in the end, love is all that matters. Love is what makes us human. Love is what gives life meaning. The Apache girl traded her freedom for her brother's life. The cowboy gave them both a home. And together, they lived happily ever after, their love echoing through time, a beacon of hope for all who follow in their footsteps.